is Rowena Dooley asking Sol citizens to report for duty. Rowena Dooley asking Sol citizens to report for duty.
Okay, this one is from Zlinga. He bought an M50 because it has a focus on the Interceptor racer. He wants to know, is there going to be racing in the game?
Yeah, no, we've actually been talking about that. It's something pretty easy for us to do. We actually want to do kind of in-game things to let people bet against each other, play, do stuff. So we will have in-game racing.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like gladiatorial areas, racing areas, fun things to do.
No, we want people. The whole point of customization. We want a whole subculture of people showing up with their hot rod ships with
awesome.
Go faster stripes and
go faster stripes and
spoilers on the back.
Too much resistance on those stripes. If you just didn't have them.
Hello, greetings. Welcome back to Soul Citizens. I'm GriffinGamingRPG, and we are back for another great week of conversation. And we have got a very interesting topic to cover this week. This has become more and more popular in the Star Citizen community, racing. But before we go there, I'm going to go here and introduce our guest today. We have joining us for the first time on our show. She's been on as a voice in the background before, but joining us as a special guest this week is RayneCloud herself. Rain, how are you?
Hi, good. Second time.
Second time. Is the second time on the Sunday show?
Second time.
Well, I kept thinking you were on a Thursday. Well, you're always on Thursday shows. That's nothing new about that. Why did I think this was your first time? My apologies. Second time.
It's been a while.
Second time. It's been a while.
It's okay.
It's been a while. Second time. Rain, tell everybody a little bit about yourself. Where you from and what do you do? Any of that good stuff.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Kira, or RayneCloud. Been a Star Citizen since the Kickstarter, and in real life, I'm a quality assurance director. Been in the video games industry professionally for 10 years. Before that, I was in the military as a medical professional, and I'm a huge racing fan in real life. And I've done big things, like if anybody's seen Citizen Kate's 6,000 kilometer trip around Microtech. I was part of that, which was I didn't finish it, but it was thousands of kilometers around Microtech. And so, yeah, I wanted to be a part of this tonight because I love racing, and in real life, you catch me watching Kim Block or Thomas Pastrana, Subaru Rally Racing, Dakar Rally, BMX, that sort of stuff. So, yeah, that's me. Hi, everybody.
Well, I want you to know, Rain, that my crazy city of Chicago is going to be having, for the first time, a NASCAR race in the city.
Oh, I wonder what they're going to do.
Always right. Always right. So it's in July, so make sure you tune in. I'll try to send you a reminder so you can watch people crash into Buckingham Fountain.
Okay,
but
awesome.
Hopefully, we'll see how that goes. That's all I'm going to say about that. But thanks for joining us. I'm glad, especially because you have a
Can't
love
even
for
imagine
racing.
NASCAR in Detroit, but Chicago. Sorry,
In Chicago?
City.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I was trying to get Grand Prix here, believe it or not. I was really trying to make
Grand
that
Prix,
happen
I
at
can
one
see.
point. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. We'll see what happens. And speaking of the devil, even though nobody said the devil, we have fastcart here today. How are you, FC?
I'm the devil.
You know?
Am I on your left shoulder or your right shoulder?
Well, I was trying to figure out a way just to get you introduced, but there you go. Okay. How you doing today?
Hey, I'm Fastcart FC. How's everybody doing? Hope everybody's having a good time. And Griffin, I love the title of today's show, Go Be Rich. I don't think many people will get the reference. I get the reference. I just want to know I see you.
Okay. Now, okay. Let's. All right. Survey says, all right, guys, because Fastcart always pulls out this stuff to me that's got dust and dirt on it, and you got to dig it out of the ground. I feel like Ghost Speed Racer, plenty of people will recognize it. So in chat, those of you in chat, y'all put a 1 in if y'all know where that comes from. If you don't know where it comes from, put in a 2. Let's see if Fastcart's right. If it's the old gray beards, they're the only ones who recognize this. All right, there's one gray beard. There's a gray beard. We only got 1. You might be right, Fastcart. Okay, there's a 2. Shipasta doesn't know. Okay. Who else?
See, all I
Anybody
gotta
else?
say to this?
Well, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Ray, I know Ray knows.
Here he
Chocolate
comes.
Sibling did a movie within the last 10 years. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, it's like about 50-50 right now. So, okay.
Yeah, that's what I love. Here comes Speed Racer.
All right,
He's
gang.
a demon.
Thank you,
wheels.
Rain. See, Rain knows what it is.
He's a
Rain
demon
knows.
and he's gonna be you chasing
All right,
after someone.
Gladstone, of course, knows what it is. Okay, so yeah, we tried to figure out something for racing. I do have to put in a waiver here that even though the PTV is there, it's not going to be one of our focus vehicles of today. And there's a reason why it's not, even though we know that CIG is currently doing a refit on that vehicle and also has incorporated it into racing.
I mean, it's the OG racer in Star Citizen. We'll get to that.
Yeah, but that's because we made it a racer. Well, we've made a lot of things racers in this game, for that matter. So,
Yeah.
But interestingly enough, when they showed us that video during the Jax video, that was one of the cars that was in that race that they were doing in Pyro. So, again, we're not going to say that certain vehicles aren't for racing, but there are some that CIG has designated. And we are going to talk about those as we go down this list of things. So let's go ahead and get ready to jump into it. Both Fastcart and Rain both have a passion for racing. I'm just kind of here to help moderate today because racing, I don't think I own any racing ships. There's only one that I did own at one point. I do own bikes, but I don't own them for racing. I just got them because I just wanted to get them. So I'm going to lean on them a little bit more when it comes down to talking about it in relation to Star Citizen. Not that I'm against it. It's just that I've been one of those people that's been waiting to see how racing would evolve in the Star Citizen universe. And let me throw that question to both of you guys. Rain, you being the guest, I'll go with you first. When people talk about a space sim or a space game or a space whatever, in a way, racing's not the first thing that comes to mind. But on the other hand, racing always seems to always get introduced. And I guess my question to you is, what do you think what is the desire about that? Is it the freedom of it? Is it the fact of the whole thing of, in some cases, no gravity? What is it you think that makes people want to race when it comes to a space sim?
I think you hit it that it's freedom, because it happened like the buckyball in Elite Dangerous, for example. People racing, canyon racing, and doing things like that at really, really high speeds. I think it's the speed, it's the freedom, it's the skill. We've all, those of us that are into racing and low flying, have watched Harada and seen the times that people have been flying real low and then they slam into something and explode. It's that sheer thrill and skill of it because you're controlling the ship. And I think it's kind of all of that, really. Yeah. FC, let me go to you because you've talked about racing, and I'm not trying to be in a personal matter, but you've talked about it even in relation as a person with a challenge, physical challenge. How do you, is there something about that has lured you? Because you've always talked about racing when it comes to Star Citizen.
Yeah, I was just typing to make a note for myself. I've been racing since the Atari 2600 in pole position. Remember
Yeah,
pole position?
yeah, yeah.
And whenever I went to with my family went to the arcade or whatever, the first thing I would go to is one of those the racers in the arcade. So yeah, I've always been into racing, and for me, it's always been like seeing the scenery fly past and like you said, the freedom and stuff like that. I played. I played Need for Speed, but I really love the Forza Horizon, the open world one. But in relation to Star Citizen, yeah, a few years ago, I tried my hand in streaming Star Citizen, and the thing that I did was the racing, and I used voice attack to control my speed, well, because I know how to take my hand off the stick or the controller, so I use my voice to control the speed, and yeah,
Nice.
it's a challenge, but once you get used to it, it's pretty fun, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think first of all, I think it's cool because it's a challenge, right? And secondly, you know that you can accomplish it and do it in the game. And some of us who may have the mobility of all our limbs can't race at all. You'll probably still dust us when it's all said and done. So I think it's pretty cool.
I'm out of practice.
Yeah.
I'm out of practice.
Yeah, well, there you go. You got the name fastcart, and I'm sure it's not for no reason at all. So there you go. I think that ties you into racing. Okay, well, let's go ahead and do some history here first, gang. Before we get into talking about Star Citizen and racing, we're going to do a quick review of ships that CIG, and please understand, I know that in Star Citizen you can fly whatever ship you want to fly and race with it. We've seen people take 890s out to the racetrack and race them. But this has more focus on ships that CIG designates on the RSI website as racers. That's the first thing. And secondly, the show's going to be talking about the evolution of racing. When we first started the show, we started out the show from Wingman's Hangar. And we saw that from the very beginning, there was a question to Chris about racing. And right away, Chris had an idea in his head about what he would want to see happening with racing. Of course, it's evolved since then. But we just kind of want you guys to know that racing didn't just pop over the last couple of years. It has been around for quite a while, the idea of it. So let's start out alphabetically. Aegis doesn't have anything. Anvil doesn't have anything. Banu doesn't have anything, even though the Defender is pretty fast. But what we will go to is Consolidated Outland. And there are two ships with Consolidated Outland that we know about that they designate as racers. One of them being the Gamma. Consolidated Outland's design and engineering teams have managed to tweak and refine this Mustang to an admirable racer. We're not going to go into glide detail on these ships. We're just kind of giving you all a real quick thing of which ships CIG considers racers, and I'm going to talk to Rain and Cloud about any feelings they have about these ships or if they've flown them, and then after that we're just going to get into the real meat of the subject here. The other ship there is the Omega. Some of you guys may have never even seen an Omega. It is a very, very rare ship in the game. Rain, have you flown either of those ships before?
I've flown all of the Mustangs, including
Okay.
because I have a friend who has one of the Omegas, and I own a Beta.
Oh, okay.
That I have and fly it quite routinely. So yeah, I've flown all of them, the Mustangs.
Okay. FC, what about you?
I've flown the Gamma and the Arena Commander for racing.
Okay.
But it wasn't my first pick. I just wanted to compare and contrast the different racing at the time. I never flown the Omega. I don't think I've seen the Omega in game. No, I haven't seen the Omega in game or anything like that. But I still want one.
Okay. Let me ask you this question too as we go through these. Let me know if any of these racers is your choice of racer as we go through them. Okay. Once we get to the one that's your racer, you know, that you dig or the one you're looking forward to doing, let me know when we get to it. Okay. So that's Consolidated Outland. Okay. Next up, we've got Drake. These two here. This is interesting. There's a definite speed difference between the Drake Dragonfly and what's the Dragonfly they call the Yellow Jacket. The Dragonfly, the black one, is actually faster than the yellow one. And some people may not know that. They think they're identical.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, but the Dragonfly is faster. Rain, what about you? You've been on these before?
Oh yeah, for thousands of kilometers.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. Do you own either one?
I do not, because I like to earn them in game.
Okay, makes sense. FC, what about you?
I have owned one, but I've since CCU'd it because it was my LTI token at the time. But I have ridden and owned one a while ago.
Okay. I own both. I own the yellow jacket because Test Squadron at one point said we had to own one because it was
That's
yellow.
why I own one. Yep, me too.
And the Dragonfly I got as a part of, I think, the exploration package. I think it was included in that. And I think I had bought one already because I just wanted a bike. I wasn't that crazy about the Nox at the time, so I ended up going with that. But okay, that's it for Drake. Let's go to the next one, which would be Misk. Now, Misk, even though they have 3 of these, this is the one that they designate the Razor as being their racer. The other one's a luxury touring, and the other one's, I think, combat. So there's really only one that they designate as their racer. Rain, what about you on this one?
No, none of the Misk's Razors, actually. One ship I have not flown yet that I really want to.
Okay. I wasn't that crazy about it because the view in it is kind of funky to me, but the thing is freaking fast. I mean, it's crazy. And of course, I'm a Grand Prix fan, so you know that. I know, Rain, I know you recognize it. The design right off the bat kind of drew me in a little bit. But
it looks like an F1 car. Yeah.
Exactly. FC, what about you, the Razor?
This is currently the only racer ship that I have in my hangar right now. This is my ship of choice at the moment.
Okay. Any particular reason? Styles?
It is free. It's
design?
fast, like you said.
It's the speed.
It's fast and it's mist and it looks like a great. I love the design. When we get the ability to change the colors on it, I will change it to red. But yeah, I love the design, and I've always been a fan of Mist. So when Mist bought out the racer, I was like, yeah, sure, okay, I'll get one.
Okay.
But I got it, and I didn't get it when it first came out. I got it at the last IAE.
Okay. All right. So that's it for Misk. Origin. Now, interestingly enough, Origin has the most racers, which I didn't know until we were doing this show. I mean, it just never clicked in my head until we were doing this show. That being the M50, the 350R. Then there is the G12, the vehicle, and then there is the X1. Rain, let me hit you on all 4 of those. Any of those in particular you've flown or own?
I own a 300i, but I've flown all the 300s, earned them in game. I've flown an M50, earned it in game. Love the M50, love the 300s, and God, I hope we get the G12 and the X1 this year. I have like pretty much this love of Origin, and I really hope that we get the G12 and the X1 this year. So
okay, FC, what about you?
I think I've flown the 350 on. Might have been, well, I had the 315P, but that's not really a racer. But if I were to pick, the 315R is probably my second choice when it comes to racing.
Yeah.
And also, when it comes to X1, they announced recently that they're starting work on it. It's not going to be done anytime soon, but they're going to start work on the X1.
Yeah. They actually had done some white box stuff on it a while back. When we did our Origin show, we showed some of the footage of that, but they haven't done it in a while. Some of us got excited, right? Rain last year when the 400i came out, we saw them pulling the X1 up into the little hangar thing. It's like, oh, maybe it's going to come. But it kind of messed with my head a little bit there because I've got all these other bikes. But as you guys know, I'm an Origin fan. Now, the M50 was the one I did buy. I owned that one for a while in the early days, and then I melted it. And I melted it only because this was in the days when I didn't understand about buying a ship with 6 months of insurance. And so I got rid of it and said, okay, I'll get one later on with either more insurance, 10-year insurance or something. But that's the one ship I didn't want to get. In the early days, yeah. The 350R, I wasn't interested in it because I wasn't interested in racing until I got in one. It's a beautiful ship. Engineering wise, the thing is a beast. I mean, it is truly a beast. I was disappointed when I went inside though, because I'm like, Rain, I was so used to the interiors and all the other ones. That sucker is stripped down to a flat mattress, and that's it. Just a mattress. It's all engine. I was expecting to see this really cool, dark interior. I'm like, what? So I'm like, oh, yeah, I know. I mean, I've got one, but I would honestly, I would have bought a 350 if it was just really cool. But it makes sense. If it's a racer, you want to strip it down to the minimums, right? That's what you want to do. You don't want to have a microwave and clocks and all that stuff in there. So I'm like you, Rain, with the G12, looking forward to that. That racer is unique, and I'm also curious to see what CIG is going to implement with that, because it has that EMP thing in there going on, which I'm kind of like, okay, how y'all going to do that in racing? And that's fair to everybody. But We'll see.
And let me mention one thing. Like during IE last IE, when I got the LX, like I said, 350R was my second choice. It came down in between like the speed and whether or not I could carry a racer inside my C2 or M2. I'm sorry, my M2.
Okay.
And the Mist Razor, you can fit two of those inside the M2, but you cannot fit the 350R.
Yeah, for racing. If you want to transport it, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so that influenced my decision because the 350R, even though it's fast, it's big. So.
Yeah, it is, and it is big. You're absolutely right. Okay, and last but not least, the X1. That's the Velocity. Some of you guys have seen that before. Of the 3 variants that they have, they've got a combat one, a touring one, and then of course the racing one. All right, so that's Origin. All right, we'll move on to, left that one on. Which one did I turn off? That one I didn't turn off. Tumbril. Tumbril has 2. Both of them are wheeled vehicles. Rayne, let's talk to you about this. You know, this whole thing of, you know, I remember when vehicles were first getting introduced into Star Citizen, and I heard some people say this is supposed to be a space game, not a, you know, being on planets thing, right? Which was interesting. I was kind of surprised that space gamers kind of only envisioned Star Citizen as just us flying out in space, you know? And don't get me wrong, I get the idea of cool grab vehicles and stuff, you know, stuff that floats and everything, but you know, CIG has some ideas about why we would have these vehicles that are wheeled vehicles. I know we don't have the what's it called? The Ranger. We don't have that, but we do have the Tumbrils. What are your feelings about these vehicles, you know, as far as racing?
So, having driven all of the Cyclones and like really loving the RC, especially like out on Daymar, I really cannot wait for the rework that was promised quite some time ago of ground vehicle physics and things like that, because there's not enough grip, there's not enough like proper simulation of like wheel contact and rolling friction and all that other kind of stuff. And then obviously like that's someone who plays like dirt rallies, like full sim cockpit stuff, asking for way too much. But I agree. I find it silly that people never thought we'd have ground vehicles to explore the planets. You know, maybe a planet's atmosphere is too dangerous for a ship to land and you know, and fly around, and so you need to land and get a vehicle out. But I don't know. I probably I would say my favorite vehicle to race is the Cyclone RC. And on the ground, at least, in the sky is different. And I really want the Rangers in the game, because like a Ranger, you'll be able to, like a normal motorcycle, just kind of wheel it up into like an Avenger Titan. Yeah. Because it's so small. Yeah. So it's silly that people wouldn't. I expected when you know 3.0 was being talked about that we were going to get ground vehicles and be able to race them and stuff like that. So these vehicles are awesome. I really think we need much better wheel physics and much better, like,
I think that part of it,
driveability.
Excuse me, I mean to cut you off. I think that part of it too, that will be added to that too, even if we have that. I think, and you being the person into space stuff and everything, you'll get when I say this. I think that the other aspects of this are going to have to be weather effects, gravity, whole lot of other things, right, to make these vehicles really start to feel like they're truly responding to whatever environment we're working them on. Because on one moon, that Tumbril RC could act one way. On another moon, it could act an entirely different way, right? So be able to incorporate whether you're on soil versus sand versus rock. I mean, there's so much, like you said, that they're going to have to build into these, that they really start to feel they're better than they were. Because I remember back in the day, they were but like you said, there's still that tweaking that needs to go on. And CIG, at least they have been committed to doing that, especially since racing now is becoming much more a thing, right? It's not just niche.
The Tumbrils are supposed to be unique too in having the claws in the wheels that are supposed to like grip into the ground, that we don't have that functionality yet. So which I think, like you're talking about, when we do get those better environmental
impacts on
impacts on the wheels and things like that.
Yep. Fastcart, what about you? I know you've been looking for that doggone Ranger forever, I think, right?
I was looking when the first concept hit. I bought the 3-pack, and I typically don't do that. I have since melted it. But for the Cyclone, that's one of the few racing vehicles I haven't really had too much time in. I think I've been in it, but not too much time. But like you said, I'm really looking forward to the Ranger. And when I say really, I mean WHEE, really. Not one with the R.
Yeah.
Hey, you come here, you got to start the pun. But yes, I want the Ranger. I'm really looking forward to it. I hope it comes out sooner than later, but I know the longer it takes, the better it'll be. So yeah, what have you. And plus it's red. It gives you that Akira from the movie, the motorcycle from Akira feel. So that's another reason why I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. By the way, guys, those of you who participate watching us every week, you guys know we always have the little channel points at the bottom there below the chat box. And we've added some new things in there. So take a look at it if you get a chance. You can actually vote with your channel points to whether we're going to be giving away Flare, whether we give away some SC merchandise, or whether we want to even give away a ship. But one of the things you can also do in there is click on it and say, tell fastcart don't tell any jokes for 10 minutes. So feel free to use that anytime you want to, if you want to use your channel points, okay? I'm just messing with you guys, but yeah, that is there for you. No problem. But if you want them to tell a joke, you can do that too. See, look at that, oh boy! Right? Believe me, 10 minutes is not going to be long enough. It'll go by real fast. So, all right, okay, guys.
So 26 after, so 36 after, I can make another joke.
He'll probably blow up before then. I don't know if he'll survive that long. All right, but last but not least, this is one Apoa, another popular manufacturer of the Nox. A lot of people like the Nox. Rayne, what are your thoughts about this one?
I don't like it. It tends to blow up way too easy.
That's one good reason. One good reason why not to like it, right?
Other than, I mean, it looks cool. But I prefer the Dragonfly, 2-seater and a little bit more cargo space, and I'm not a fan of the Nox.
Yeah, let me ask you this though. Barring that though, it's supposed to be extremely fast and straight lines, if I'm remembering correctly. And I was going to say, is that something that you do admire about it? Is the speed aspects of it?
Yeah, if it would stop blowing up at speed.
Okay, all right. Okay, yeah, no, I get it. Yeah, I get it. FC, what about you? The Nox.
The Nox is probably one of my favorite. How do you say that? Right, vehicle basically, yeah.
Okay.
I had the Nox Kui, the silver one, and I've been waiting to say this, but I decided like a few years ago to melt all of my vehicles. I don't have any vehicles in my fleet at the moment, except for like the PTV, which you got from referral or whatever.
Right.
So, but it was really hard to let go of the Nox because I love the way it looks. It's really sleek. And it looked like a dream. So yeah, it was really hard to let that one go. Okay. But hey, I can get it in game.
Okay. All right. Alrighty. Okay. Let's move on with that. I'm gonna stay with Nox for a moment. We're gonna watch a video game, and in this video, it's the devs talking about the Nox, but what I really want you to pay attention to is what they talk about designing these vehicles, okay, for racing and speed. Because I was sharing with both Rayne and fastcart before the show, as we were doing the research for this show, how much work was really being put in to things like the Nox, the Dragonfly, all the vehicles. I always think about a lot of work being put into the ships, but I was pretty much amazed to find out that just as much dedication and work is done to these vehicles as well. So let's take a look at that.
Hi, my name is Chris Smith, and I'm the lead vehicle artist in the ATX office. I'm currently working on the Nox bike, which is a Xi'an bike made by Apoa. It has Xi'an technology involved, much like the Scout, and it's you know, a very stylish bike, and it's supposed to sort of compete with the Dragonfly. Well, the Dragonfly was made, you know, with a lot of sort of exploring and scouting in mind, I think. This bike, on the other hand, is a little bit more purposed towards either racing or combat, but it's going to be very fast and nimble, and it's going to be powerful in combat. The concept was provided from England this time. It was only a 2D concept, though. Usually here, we start with 3D concepts. For this bike, though, we didn't really have too much time for that initial concept phase. It was worked out in a fairly quick manner and only on 2D. So this was a bike that I got to actually build from the ground up. Literally the first poly, you know, from the ground up, which was quite enjoyable. So building the Xi'an bike wasn't terribly challenging because we used the Xi'an technology, which uses magnet technology, and it kind of made connecting points a little bit easier. So we decided to have like the nacelles floating, and they're connected by magnetism, and the handlebars the same way, and sort of the plates slide along. We try to infuse a lot of style of the Xi'an technology in there and use like a mix between sort of like heavy metals and exotic materials. The main challenge was to make sure that we sort of, Nathan Dearsley helped in the concepting it with Gary Sanchez. He told me that he really wanted to, like from afar, look like this little monolithic sort of simplified thing, like sort of ominous looking shape from a distance, and then when you get closer, you know, it reveals more detail. The main challenge was to kind of get that feeling across and make sure I hit that. The Xi'an technology, the skin of the bike, is definitely going to be an armored type. The rider itself is protected by the bike. When he gets on, it has these sort of shells that come up above his back, so the rider has a little bit more protection, you know, from behind. The main thing that sets the Xi'an technology apart from, like, let's say RSI or Aegis would be the rider has a much more aggressive stance on the bike than on the Dragonfly. So the Dragonfly is more the upright stance, right? This Xi'an bike has like a race bike type stance. So you're forward leaning, it's more racer type. Your legs are back. That gives a little bit more maneuverability, and then also that way you can kind of get a little shell and a little bit more protection over the guy. So I mean, it's still open on the sides and everything, but you just get like a little extra protection from those shells in the back. The Xi'an bike is actually going to use a holographic HUD system in order to try to streamline everything and make it technologically advanced. We try to minimize the amount of screens as much as possible. Once you get on the bike, initially there's not going to be any screens there. There's one little screen by you and right in front of you, but that's sort of flat and that comes up a little bit. But everything else will like come up as a holographic image in front of you, which looks really cool, and the startup sequence is pretty neat.
Hi, I'm Patrick Salerno, technical artist at Cloud Imperium Games. I focus on mainly destruction systems and optimization for the spaceships. Functionality too. At the end, I make sure things work, but I kind of have a checklist of things that I go through when I'm doing the spaceships. It's like there's a couple tech art passes that the ships go through. In particular, we'll be talking about the Nox today and the setup that went into that, and if it differs from any other ships that I've worked on. Most of the ships that you see in game I've probably touched in terms of either lighting or particles or damage or something during some point in the process. I get the model from the artist. He's like, it's done. You know, and before this we've talked about how it's going to break off, which pieces are going to break off of where. Sometimes there's small changes down the process. We're like, oh, those intakes or those weapon racks might be able to break off. You know, we can add a little bit more detail or gameplay. So I'm working with design, I'm working with art, and we're trying to make sure that by the time I get it, there's really no back and forth. You know, like I don't have to go, oh, Mr. Artist guy, there's something I have to do here. So I take it from there, and what I do is, if we're looking at this ship here, I will look at it in Max and I'll break it apart. And we'll say, okay, so if the nose comes off from the front of the ship, then it has to detach and fly off. How do we do that? How do we make all those pieces work together and look good? Well, for that, I usually hop into the XML from there. So before even working on like the art side of it, like making the metalware and stuff, I have to work on the functionality side where the debris happens. So pew, 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 shoot the ship and it explodes. The pieces have to fly off in certain directions. Those are called vectors. Those are impulses, right? You know, boom, ship happens, it explodes. Now, what happens is I'm kind of tying in multiple effects together at the same time. I'm saying I have particles to work with when I'm shooting the ship. So all these little green squares you see here are kind of what are called helpers in Max. And helpers are all these little green squares you see, and they can serve a bunch of different purposes for what we want to use them for. For my particular purpose, I use them like C4 charges, like little explosives that will happen. And what they'll do is they'll burst in, say, a radius. And I'll set the radius in my list and on the name of it, and that gets put into the XML. And from there, I then update the ship, and I shoot the ship, and I can test my new particles. So it's a bit of back and forth, right? You know, you want to go in, shoot it, see what happens, check your particles, check your fire, you know, make sure everything looks all right. If the modelers put in specific things like wires and girders and stuff and tubes, you know, you want to take that into account when you're putting down a particle. Now, mind you, I don't necessarily make the libraries, and I go in and I'll pick from, say, you know, low-tech, high-tech, Shantech, Vandal-Tech type, you know, particle libraries. So luckily, these guys had a cool one. They're kind of like high-energy blue alien tech, so I had a lot of fun with that, just sort of like shooting and testing it. So once I get the debris flying off, let's move on to the next phase. I set up what's called the UV2s and the damage map, right? And that is our system where the ship actually melts and wears. Now, when we do this system, we have to take into account the underlying surface detail. It's very important. So the modelers will actually model girders and underlying stuff, and there's two types of underlying sort of surface detail. There's 2D and 3D geo. 2D geo is like this, it's called a POM, parallax occlusion map. It's this one polygon that goes under the surface of the hull, no matter what its shape is. And when you shoot the ship and it melts, you'll end up seeing that underlying sort of metal or girders or wires or whatever's not actually like, you know, it's supposed to be there so you don't see through the ship. Polygons are only one-sided, right? So light hits it, that's it. But if you're looking at the other side, you can see right through. So we take that into account. So for that to work, the ships need 2 UV sets. And in case you're not sure what a UV set is, a UV set is what maps your texture. So like the wood on this surface or some kind of other wear-like thing. So UV1s are for your ship texture, and UV2s are for the procedural damage map. Once we start shooting that, everything kind of works in conjunction. So I have my initial debris with the pieces flying off and the breakability, activating the particles, which then set off, say, fire, smoke, electricity, then spins off, and then fades out. Now, after I'm done with all the, you know, fun creative stuff, you know, there's the making sure things work and is optimized and runs well. There's also another layer to that. When you're doing the shader damage and it's doing the melty effect and it's trying to show the underlying stuff, we use what are called vertex colors on the ship. And vertex colors are basically every vertice, a polygon is made of these little points of vertices. Each one can hold data. We use that color data to tell the map that it can be transparent or not. So what I do is I'll go in, and all these different colors mean just a slightly different level of damage, right? So say, for example, there's really no damage under the nose, right? But I still want it to show the UV2 damage, still looks like it's getting dented and worn, right? I can set it to a certain color that can block the punch through of the damage. That means you might not be able to see the underside of the ship. Now, for somewhere in the back, I can do it a little differently where I can layer the damage. So if there's really nothing under here, I can set that. You can't punch through, but you can slowly whittle through different areas of the ship. Then I just go through and I kind of layer that across the ship and create levels of damage. It creates a little bit more randomness when you're firing at it. Some areas will get huge hole punch throughs and other areas might look like they're just wearing a bit harder. So yeah, but after I have all that set up, I kind of work on the lights, right? I want to make sure that lighting works. Most of the time, lights are set up by the artists themselves, the ones who are doing the ship or the lighting artists. So if there are no lights set up, which I was lucky enough to have at the time with this, I had a little back and forth with Chris Smith about it and he polished it off. But basically I got to set up some of the lights on this ship. And this was kind of fun because as an alien ship, the theme was more of a high-tech sort of vibe. Most of our ships have more traditional fire, spark, smoke, et cetera, et cetera. So luckily there were Xi'an libraries and some high-tech libraries I got to play with for this ship. And when I was shooting it, different weapons have different effects. If we shoot this, we see we get a sort of melty, burny wear. If we pull out a rifle, we get bullets. Now the bullets can actually sort of tear a hole in the ship, which is fun. Boom, and then change the lighting conditions, fire, smoke, et cetera, et cetera. So at the end, that's how all the pieces come together, right? The process takes a bit longer than that, but at the end, it's pretty fun and just sort of picking which pieces explode and killing the ship. And I mean, it's important to take into account the functionality of the ship when deciding how it's going to be destroyed. Like, you know, with this guy, there were really only 2 or 3 pieces you could blow off, like nose, sort of the seat area, and the tail. So how do you make that look different every time you want to blow up the ship, you know? I don't really like it when damage always looks the same, so my goal is to add sort of randomness and variety to it. One more cool thing that I have is to show is this new debug gun we have for testing the damage. Normally I shoot it, right? I use different weapon types to see what happens if you're going across a ship. But we have this thing called a damage gun now for debugging our materials. And you can see, all I have to do is kind of look at the ship. Now this doesn't help me with actually blowing off pieces of the ship. That still doesn't quite work, but that's where I shoot the ship with an actual gun. But you can see I can test out my damage map, which you can see up here in the corner. Then that wears away. And this is what I was talking about with the transparency. You can see slowly eats away at the ship. So if there's really nothing under there, I don't want to actually expose that to the player, right? So I do the vertex colors that you see over here to block off certain areas. Like this has a lot of vertex colors. There's not much going on, but I'd say that's pretty much it. And then I test it all and I bring it all together and I give it polish and then I hand it off to the final people for functionality and testing.
Working on the Xi'an bike was actually pretty neat because it was the first non-ship that I got to build for this company. I did use bike references for some of the details, like, you know, engine details, because the Xi'an sort of has like a naked bottom. It's not totally covered, you know, so it shows some of the mechanics and stuff. So I definitely used some real-life motorcycle reference from that. And I'm into motorcycles, so I was very glad this fell in my lap. It's very sexy, so I had a lot of fun working on it.
Okay, let me ask.
Dang it, Griffin, make me want to buy it again. I melt mine. Dang.
Let me throw a question to you guys about this, and I really want to go here with Rayne first on this because Rayne, as you know, there's always been this big discussion about speed. Chris Roberts has had this, and I get when we had the ships in space, the idea of close quarter combat. We've been at the point where we were jousting, we were doing these high speed things, very difficult for combat, at least in the way that Chris wants it. You know, he wants us not to just to be able to shoot at ships, but to be able to target components, things of that nature, so on and so forth. Do you think it would be something for CIG to make it so that in racing, those limitations are raised? Because, you know, I get it when we're doing close quarter combat and things like that, but for racing, should there be a situation where not unlimited speed, but that maybe the speed should be greater in relation to that?
I think that would be a hard one from a design perspective because you'd want to maintain feature parity, right? So it kind of pulls the player out of, like, if for some reason I can go faster and do stuff in a racing environment, like an actual, like a racing mission, or in some sort of localized racing environment that I can't do in the rest of the verse.
What about a toggle? What about a toggle? Racing mode versus combat mode. If you're in racing mode, you cannot fire any weapons.
Well, we're going to get that, basically.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, yeah.
With the master modes, yeah.
Yeah, but that's, in the ships, yeah. But I'm talking about more for your vehicles, like your racing vehicles, though. I'm talking specifically for them. Like, if you like, we go to competition, we go to a racetrack, right? But, you know what? I don't know, because there are... Well, let me ask you a question, and now that you said that, will racing involve combat as well?
Oh, of course it will.
Okay, and that's what I want to know. Yeah. And that's what I wanted to know, because my question is, if there's a combat version, I get it. But if there's a non-combat version of racing where it's all about speed, you know what I'm saying? This is strictly about speed. Could there be like a racing mode that shuts off weapons, but it also gives you an extra so many meters per second in speed?
Well,
for racing, or is it just
Again,
not necessary? Is it not necessary?
It's not necessary with what we've heard of master modes, right? So like master modes, they'll be able to tune the ships differently, and we know ships that are tagged as interceptors will have like quicker spool up and quicker speeds and things like that.
But you're talking about ships,
vehicles.
though. You're talking about ships, though.
Well, true.
And I'm talking about racing for bikes and vehicles.
For bikes and vehicles, I don't think it's necessary.
Okay, fair enough. I'm not a racer. I'm just asking because it just popped in my head, so I was just kind of curious.
I mean, we got combat at Damar Rally all the time too.
Right.
And like,
true.
I've never raced Damar Rally, but watching it, like, people, the combat happens at Damar Rally. But I think also you've got to take speeds into account, right? So like the STV and the Cyclone, you're doing like 110, 120 mile an hour in a vehicle over rough terrain.
Rough terrain, yeah.
Go do that in real life.
Yeah, right.
And see how quickly you don't end up dead or wrapped around a tree.
Point made.
Versus a starship traveling at like Mach 4.
Right.
I mean, there's some differences. I don't think it's necessary.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
Okay, no, that's cool. Yeah, Fastcart. What about you? What did you think about the design stuff? I mean, did you think that much detail was going into the design of the bikes, or you already knew?
I've forgotten about it.
Okay.
Like, I remember watching that. I want to say ISC, but that's an ATV, Around on the Verge, from 2015. So yeah, I remember watching it, but I had forgotten about it. So all that stuff coming back to me, I'm like, yeah, a lot of thought went into the knock. And can I just say, I'm going to date myself again, but I think one of the things that draws me to the knock is that it reminded me of a Tron life cycle.
Yeah.
You remember those?
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that really draws me to the knock. And I really want to melt mine, so thank you for that, Griff.
yeah, no problem. Yeah, I just wanted to show that because I just wanted us to kind of be, like you said, be reminded of how much work has gone into these. Just not just that they look pretty, but there's a lot more. He was dealing with the damage model, and for me, I like that because if I was a racer, I'm not, but like anything, I want to be able to look at what I'm riding or in, and if I can get a visual indicator that there's something wrong beyond me having to look at a scanner screen, but if I can physically see that there's part of my ship has been, blasted into, or a weapon is missing, to me that means something, even with racing on the state of the vehicle that I'm in. So I think that those visual indicators are important for you if you're going to be out there doing folks like in the Damar where you're doing these long races. Being able to have visual cues as to what's the state of your vehicle, to me, is important. Same thing with ships.
Sound more so.
Sound. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Is it not running smooth, right?
That trailer at the end when they showed the Knox trailer and you heard that sound, and it was like, oh man, I love that.
You say if you start hearing click, 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 that means you got to put some oil in, or you're going to throw a rod, maybe, right? So yeah.
Or if you. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Ray.
No, if you take a jump, like playing Dirt Rally 2.0, you take a jump and you're inside the cockpit of the car, and it's a hard jump and a hard landing, and the car just slams into the ground, and all of a sudden you lose control of the vehicle. You probably just busted an axle, or blew a tire out or something like that. I want that tactile, sound-based. Let me know what's going on with my vehicle if I'm sitting in the cockpit.
Great point. Yeah, if something's right. I mean, we get it now, right? I mean, some ships we have sound like, if you're flying on a Drake ship, you hear like the little moans and groans. But to hear visual indicators, like you said, something clicking, something clanking, something rattling, that says there's something loose, something's not right, or I need to get repaired. That's a great idea, Rayne. I think that's really cool.
Drake ships held together by duct tape and wishes.
Very cool. All right, well, listen, gang, we're gonna keep going here. I see that there's been a battle for the channel points to keep Fastcart joking and not joking. That's been interesting to watch. But what we're going to do now is take you guys back through a little bit of the history of racing. As we started out the show talking about back in 2013, Chris was already talking about racing for Star Citizen, and it was kind of quiet. We didn't hear very much about it. In the beginning, though, racing was really popular because we had something that everybody used to go to, because there was no Area 18, there was no Port Olisar, but there was a thing called the Murray Cup. So, without further ado, those of you who've been there before, you'll know what this is, but there are some people here who maybe have never done the Murray Cup. So let's take a quick look at that.
Thanks, Rayne.
Love you.
Reporting in New Horizon, I'm Trevor Bask for GSN Murray Cup coverage. Couldn't argue for better conditions to race in, I suppose.
Okay, Rain, you've been around for a long time, so is fastcart. You probably can talk about the Murray Cup a little bit from back in the day, right?
God, it's
back
how
in the
many
day,
years?
Way back in the day.
Yeah, no, I remember. I do remember this when we first saw it, and I remember this racing track we've got in Arena Commander, which they, we're going to get into later about this one. But yeah, the Murray Cup. I mean, that I really started to believe things were going to be special in this game when they first started talking about the Murray Cup. So I hope it becomes a real in universe thing, not like an Arena Commander thing, but a real in universe thing that people can go and buy tickets to and watch the race, and you can, because like people that follow rally racing, for example, they know Travis Pastrana and Ken Block and the people the big names in the rally racing scene. But then you go to NASCAR or Formula and people know the big names and so
well, there was back then, there were people that had notoriety. I don't know if you remember, it was posted on the forums or what, but they people that, what was the guy in Test fastcart? He was like the #1 racer in Murray Cup. It was Shive. Shive was the #1 racer in Star Citizen for quite a while. That scene there with the guy standing on the platform, that's what I always kept hoping, was that we could actually be out there and watch the race. I hate to say this, Rain. I spent more time landing on the platforms and checking those out than I did racing around the track, because I thought it was just so cool. Because I used to take the P-52 and I'd go out there and race the track a little bit, and then I would go on the Merlin and go land on the platforms, And mind you, back then, I don't think, could you get out on them? I can't remember if you could get out and walk on them.
I don't remember.
But I was so amazed with hoping that would, because like the Cloud City idea, I just thought that was so cool. FC, what about you? Did you ever monkey around in the doing the Murray Cup piece?
Yeah, I did it in Arena Commander. Yeah,
You did?
That was my training ground. Because before we had the tutorial and everything like that, I think the Arena Commander is still a good place to learn how to find Star Citizen before you really try to dunk your toes in PU. At least that's my opinion. Yeah. But yeah, so I did mess around with racing. I did the classic racing a lot. Yeah.
Okay, very cool. All right, well, that was the Murray Cup. And by the way, to Jade's point, Rain's point, this is lore. The Murray Cup is part of the Star Citizen lore, so that we are expecting, like you said, to see it in game. Another thing that CIG used to talk about was scramble racing. I don't know if you guys have ever heard them reference that, but we're going to show you a little clip about CIG's work on scramble racing. And this was back in 2015, 16, I forget when it is, but here we go. Let's take a look at it.
Let's march on to development updates, starting with the PU mission team. They're continuing work on scramble races, honing this new mission type into experiences that are equal parts harrowing and hilarious. Here's lead mission designer Luke Presley with more.
Just a quick update on the scramble races. We've prevented grav-led vehicles, such as the Dragonfly and Nox, from being able to fly in gravity, which has really led to some exciting races. This is because you get more time to focus on combat rather than avoiding obstacles. We've also catered towards the more combat-heavy focus by allowing you to steal the points collected by leaders or joint leaders when you kill them. This leads to some really unpredictable races when, you know, the leaders kind of swing this way and that. And we've also continued to improve the space races by crafting their own arenas inside the asteroid ring of Yella. This has finally got us that density of obstacles that we were lacking, and what makes the ground races so much fun.
You're muted.
Thank you. I'm glad you read lips. I'm going to show one more video here for Scramble Racing. Make sure I get the right one here. Turn that one off, turn that one off, turn this one on.
Let's march on to development up.
Oh, wrong one.
Yeah, so the mission team continues to work on modular mission design and has refocused efforts on the Scramble Race or Death Race missions that we saw early tests of in previous updates.
Y'all gonna be racing in the Scramble. Get set, go! First one to collect enough checkpoints wins. Outside of that, whatever the hell you want. Time to see who's gonna lay it all on the line and snatch the ring of victory. Wish we have ourselves a winner.
The Scramble Race is a weapons-free race. There's a space version and a ground version. This week we've been focusing mainly on the ground version. We took it to a stage just for designers where we thought we were happy with basically getting a lot of other QA and designers involved because it's up to a 16-player race. The tests were really positive actually. Just a little bit of feedback like the wheeled vehicles need to have, because they go slower and they have to avoid more rocks, and we should bring in the checkpoints more, whereas the grav-led vehicles, we can spread them out wider. So we're there now, and we have been getting the little bits of feedback from them that help us improve it and get to the point of release. And from there, we'll be moving on to the space race.
Were you guys ever up on the Scramble races? Did they ever really implement that?
No,
it never did, right? It never got in, right?
Find that now.
Yeah, that's what I was just saying, because I remember all the talk about it for a while, and I thought it was kind of cool with the flares out there, so you know where to go. I know that it was a thing what they were hoping for that was going to happen at Grimhex too, and this is before they even put in the racing area, but it was supposed to be at Grimhex in particular, going through the asteroid belt, but never did see that part come up. So I don't know if they'll ever see it again, because a lot of things are testing, right? Their ideas that they test, maybe they'll do it, maybe they won't do it. So I guess we can't be too mad at CIG for that.
Karate said they got it in for a patch or so, but it was very brief. So they had it in and took it out.
Okay.
That's what he said.
Okay. All right, let's hit the next one here after Scramble Race. But we're going through this progressively. That was in 2018, but also in 2018, we got introduced to something that a lot of you guys are familiar with, and that's the Daymar Rally. Let's see that.
Last week, we also saw the group behind the Daymar Rally organize a rover practice run.
Yep, the self-proclaimed filthiest race in the galaxy came out of the gate firing on all cylinders with last week's rover run. As you can see here, the group is figuring out the logistics of capturing the elegant chaos of their no-holds-barred off-road scramble events. Got a really cool brochure here with a lot of pretty cool stuff in it. So anyway, it's awesome to see the community build that kind of content into the universe. It's pretty awesome.
Not all of our community activities cater to daredevils and danger seekers, though, as you can see here. Echo organized a leisurely Grey Cat cruise across Daymar, and the results were quite relaxing.
So let me bounce this to you guys, because in 2018, that was the first time that I heard about the Daymar Rally. We were at the Austin Citizen Con, and there were, if I'm remembering correctly, there were 5 tables that were set up for members of the community. I think Explorer had one, Test had one, Sigelian had one, and the Daymar Rally people had one. And that brochure that you saw Chris hold up is what they had at their table. And at that time, they were trying to introduce folks to the idea of the Daymar Rally. It hadn't started yet. and they had these brochures, and if you were interested, they'd let you take it. It was a beautiful color brochure, like Chris is showing. I mean, it was professionally done. And when I saw it, I was kind of like, wow, this is kind of out there. But you know what? I thought Sigelian was out there too, because he had that whole gas station idea going back then, you know? And but years later, this stuff has become noted in the community. And so, you know, Rayne, I thought this was kind of cool because they, you know, here they show how they had the Daymar Rally. Another group set up something was just like a leisurely, let's travel across, you know, the surface of a moon. And again, we talked about this at the beginning of the show. You know, there's always this desire, right, that somewhere or other with space, sim space, whatever, the idea of racing still gets brought up, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's. I think it's just going to happen no matter what you do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the idea of vehicles and skill and speed and thrill and danger and doing that on alien worlds. Like, I don't like. I used to race in Kerbal Space Program. Like, it doesn't matter, right? Like, if it's a space game that gives you planets and wheels or some sort of hover or whatever, people are gonna race.
They're gonna want to race. Yeah, that's a good point. Good point. Fastcart, it was interesting here. We first talked about the scramble races, which we said didn't really ever come into fruition. But then it's interesting that they mentioned that Daymar Rally set up their own scramble. And I'm wondering whether or not, kind of by the community doing it, it became something that CIG didn't have to do. You know,
yeah.
Any thoughts about that?
The community stepped up and made something that CIG had placed on a lower priority. I don't want to say that they didn't want to do it. I'm just saying it was not a priority at the time. So the community stepped up in a big way and got it done. Matter of fact, didn't 2 weeks ago they had over 1,000 participants in the last race. So you get about 1,000 people and players at the same time racing. Not all on the same server, obviously, but still, that's a lot of people. A lot of people want to race.
Yeah.
That's just the people who participated. Like you have a whole lot of people like me who racing it off time or whenever.
Right. Rayne, let me bounce back to you before we move on to the next one. I said I wasn't going to spend a lot of time, but this just popped in my head. There's benefits. This is a kind of a one-hand wash and the other thing too, though, right? I mean, here's the folks with Daymar creating these races that are incorporating bikes, you know, vehicles, ships, people, right? And Star Citizen RSI CIG benefits from all of the analytics and stuff that come from that, right? Isn't there some each business a win-win thing for both sides?
It is a win-win, like, because, you know, before I became a quality assurance director, I was a community manager, and we'll see with community content, right? Like, look at Skyrim, 11 years old, still going strong, 30,000 people playing the game right now. Kerbal Space Program, right? 10 years old, mods, right? These games that are super, super old that have all this community-generated content have that longevity versus games that don't. And when it comes to allowing racing in these types of games and vehicles, I'm sure, like you said, CIG gets all this telemetry, all this data about, you know, just like how the vehicles are performing and how the terrain generation system is performing and, you know, like the OCS is performing and the servers are performing and things like that. So it's just a complete win-win because in game dev, we talk a lot about, like, you know, triage, right? Like triaging, like what is the least amount of resources for the most amount of impact on the game. And why bother doing the scramble racing thing when the Daymar Rally and the Hurston Hurt Locker and the Stanton 7, all that stuff exists? Why bother doing it? Why not just support, as we'll see with the tracks that got added, why not just support what the community is doing? Less resources, less time, much bigger impact.
And for them, the focus now for them also can be, again, on the technical side, right? How are servers performing, performance rate, frame rates, all, you know, how many people are in the server doing, all types of things come out of this that benefit the progression of the game, just because these folks are racing, right? Just because they're doing that, right? We're going to say FC?
Yeah, I was going to say, remember what happened at the end of the last CitizenCon, that event? You recall?
The STV race.
Oh,
with
yeah.
devs and the
So imagine all the analytics they got for a brand new vehicle they put in the game.
Yeah.
For that event.
Right. Good point. Okay. All right. Well, that was 2018, gang. We're going to go into talking about, this was added in 2020, Grimhex's area for racing.
There's a lot of things going on in the future of Grimhex that we needed to prepare for. Grimhex is a very, very illegal place where people come in to do all kinds of illegal trading, illegal betting, maybe some really shady deals, and it's not a really nice place to be. So for the racing kiosk, we knew that these illegal races were going to need a lot of sort of betting and a mission giver and places to watch it from. So what we've done is we've taken one of the sort of more rundown and forgotten areas of Grimhex and kind of updated it to look super nice. So we have the racing shop, or betting shop as we're calling it, and what we've done with that place is we've really jazzed it up with lots of really cyberpunk lights, very bright pink, purple, lots of betting kiosks and screens that could, like, maybe in the future just display kinds of informations for the race, standings for the season. Then inside the shop you'll have area that Luca Brunt just oversees everything, and he's just going to be sitting there on his desk, which is just surrounded by screens overlooking all kinds of information through the Stanton system for all these illegal races. And just outside of his shop you'll see the standings and a bunch of really rickety walkways that we've added where people are going to sit there, watch the races from this huge window that they have in front of them. There's even a little VIP area, places to sell beer, and people are just going to be able to, like, come in there and sit in this really dingy place and be able to watch these races happening around in the asteroids. And I want them to feel a little bit uncomfortable about it, but know that they got to come in there to do their business and just bet on the races and make sure that they're not going to get stabbed in the back.
So, yeah, you're sitting there watching your favorite racer and you win, and then somebody stabs you in the back because they're mad because they lost. Rayne, let me ask you a question. What is illegal races? Because I've always wondered where CIG is going to go with that. Is it illegal because the type of gambling or the amounts that were big? What makes it illegal that it has to be a Grimhex? Do you have any ideas on what that could possibly be?
Well, for starters, the violence, right? Because you're not going to be able to shoot people at the Murray Cup.
True.
Right? I mean, you probably can, but it
I was going to say.
I mean, there's a difference between legally can and should.
Yeah.
You know, so betting might be controlled by the advocacy, for example. You know, and this is where Jade, you know, would come into play, need her lore expertise, but, like, you know, the violence of it, the fact that, as was mentioned, you know, somebody could stab you in the back, the betting aspect that maybe the UE doesn't, you know, has, like, controlled betting laws like we have in, you know, real life.
Yeah.
Because I've got, like, a casino, like, literally, like, less than an hour from me. So, you know, probably all of that is what I would think. Yeah.
Yeah. Because they talked about there's being able to bet on the races. There's machines there that you can bet on. There's a whole lot of stuff going on. It's a beautifully designed place. It's too bad it's a ghost town right now. And I'm really looking forward to when we do really want to go there to do some stuff. But I'm kind of concerned about the shadiness side of it. You know, you have to make sure you got some backup with you or something. You may not want to go there by yourself unless you want to keep your back to the wall when you're there most of the time. FC, what do you think about them incorporating this area as a very designated area for racing in the game?
I mean, it's cool. I mean, it's something that the community wanted and something that the community is getting. So it was really nice to CIG to listen to the community and actually, like, put forth features that, you know, benefit the community. And I'm not so much going to Grimhex, but I'm looking forward to seeing the real Murray Cup outside of Arena Commander, whether if we get that.
So let me throw this question to both of you, whichever one wants to answer. If you don't have an answer, no big deal. What do you think CIG is going to do to make people want to go there? In other words, will it be the prize money? In other words, you know, they'll implement something in the game. Like if I'm sitting in freaking Orison, you know, in the clouds enjoying a drink, what's going to make me want to get in my ship and go to Grimhex to watch that race? And mind you, we know that in the future they may be broadcasting them, but I'm asking specifically about why do I want to go there because they've designed this place for people to be spectators, right? So what do you think will be something that will make people say, let's go over to GrimHex. They got a race going on today. Because, I'm just kind of curious. Is it relationships with people? Is it because your org is represented? Is it because the purse is so big? You know what I mean? What do you think CIG could implement to make people want to be at that location?
I'm gonna say limited edition merchandise, in-game merchandise, like a T-shirt.
Yeah.
Ooh. Okay.
That doesn't entice me as a player. But
I mean, some people would. It would entice some people.
Yeah, some of us ain't got nothing else better to do. We'd go for the shirt.
True. Yeah. Well, I think the in-game loot rewards, the prize money, the prestige of it, the reputation of it.
You think reputation? I was going to ask you, do you think reputation of like certain, because you follow racing. So if there's a certain person that you start knowing in the community is building up, that would probably be a reason why you go over to watch.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. Okay. Like I'd go watch Dorada, right? If he decided to go if he decided to go fly and race there, I'd go there specifically because I'd want to be able to see somebody that we know in the community from like the low flying videos and stuff, like what goes on there, or like anybody from XGR from so yeah, I think there's a lot that can be done, but as with most things in these types of large open scale MMOs, the answer to what is going to entice a player there is up to the player.
Yeah. I like your point about reputation too, because when you just said XGR, Torada, it's those teams and stuff, just like now, right? With the with the Daymar Rally. I mean, certain teams that start to get notable names. And so I think that would probably make me go. If I knew there were certain teams or people over there, I probably would go if I heard about it. The question also become, how CIG is going to advertise that, when we start seeing the billboards light up, you know what I mean? With the names of the different teams.
It's going to be on the side of a whole seat.
Yeah, right. Well, you know what? It could be. No, fastcart, to your point. They do have the whole ease with the screens on the side. The NPC ones could do that. And again, if I'm standing at the elevator waiting to go downstairs, if I see, race today, and here's the names, just like when we see during Invictus, right? When we see where the ships are, when the fleet's moving around. You're right. That would be a way to get my attention to go over and check it out. I like that idea.
I mean, they can advertise it like, I went to GrimHex to watch the race, but all I got was this lousy T-shirt. Hey, my band was over, okay?
Yeah, no, but you're right. I like that. Okay. All right, very cool. All right, let's move on. This has been introduced just recently in 2022. And this was something that none of us expected, I don't think, was the whole idea of this kart racing, right? That was something...
When we finished working on Siege of Orison, my lead approached me and told me about those convention halls, that they are most of the time empty in between the events, and maybe we should fill it with something fun for the player. We collected some ideas and decided to go for a buggy racetrack. When we started, we didn't want to take this go-kart track too serious. We wanted to make something colorful and playful. So our main inspirations were obviously a very popular racing game. We took also inspirations from laser tag, those blacklight paintball arenas, stuff like that. So I had 3 weeks in total to finish the whole racetrack, from the first idea to the final product. It was basically a one-man project. I tried to make the racetrack as modular as possible, so I created a few of those racetrack pieces and just put them together in a way that it's fun for me to play it. My favorite part of the racetrack is probably where you have to jump over a ramp. We have been testing the racetrack internally and it's already a lot of fun. The physics of the Grey Cats is something we are looking into, because we also had a loop-the-loop, but the Grey Cats were not fast enough to take it, so we had to cut it out. But in the future we hope that we can put it in.
Okay, Rain, let me throw this at you. You know, we've been looking at racing, and I kind of felt like, you know, like I told you, I'm not really big on racing. But I kind of saw this as being CIG's answer from PGA to having a mini golf course, right? I mean, it's like you've got those people who are serious in the pros, who've got these great trace, you know, 6 tracks that we'll be talking about in a few minutes. But then they also kind of throw this little thing for the casuals, right? They just want to go just have some fun, but also enjoy the idea of racing, right?
I will say, I love this. I love this track. I love it. It's so much fun. It's more fun than it has any right to be, to go out there. And that's why, like, you know, 318, once I get past my burnout, I'll be living at Orison, because I got little racing and big racing, and I got ground missions and space missions and all. Orison's like the place in 318, in my opinion, like the place to be. All of the mission types and varieties and salvage and mining and everything is out there. But that track is just, it's cool.
It is.
That it makes me like, why not give us a couple more different tracks at the other convention centers, like the Area 18 Convention Center and the Convention Center at Microtech. Like they said, they did this because the convention centers are like empty between the conventions, right? So like, do more of this. This is so cool. Like, CIG, please, if you're watching, more of these little buggy cart tracks in the other convention centers. They're so much fun.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hey, Griffin, I don't think you have this, but the week after, or the week of this ISC, they had him on the ATV where he made a new track from scratch. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and he showed us putting it together. I like this idea, and again, you know, my question becomes, when I went to see it, I didn't go when they first opened it. I just went like maybe 2 weeks ago. I went for the first time, and of course, when I went there, it's just me. Nobody was there. Definitely saw the potential of it. Definitely, like you said, Rain. Even by myself, it was fun. I went around the first time. I didn't lose it. I made the jump. Had so much fun, and I remember saying, "Wow, this will be so much fun if I have other people here with me." So I'm also thinking about what are those incentives. Maybe on the bigger, more serious, I'll say, let me use the term professional races. I can see different types of incentives to go, where places like this, they're almost more like carnival incentive. You know, like you get the like fastcart was mentioning, or maybe there's a unique Pico you get if you win, you know, just like little fun carnival type things. I think that would be really, don't get me wrong, people could have serious races here too if they want. But I just kind of see this more as the carnival version versus the, you know, the NASCAR or the Indy version. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And so I really, really like this a lot. I agree with you. I think first of all, the reuse of the convention centers is just smart. You talked about that earlier. How many ways can we find things and reuse them in the game so we don't have to make stuff over again? But yeah, if they put them at all the different convention centers, I would love that too. Fastcart, have you tried this yet? The racetrack? Have you gone over there yet and seen it?
No, that's the one I haven't tried yet.
Oh, dude,
I've not tried it yet.
It's really cool. It really is
so much
cool.
fun.
It is.
Cool.
It is. Yeah. It's really cool. So that's another aspect of racing that we didn't expect for CIG to do. So let's talk about what they have shown us recently.
Oh, and before we go, that thing only took them 2 weeks to build. I wanted to mention that. Only 2 weeks to build.
Yep. And it looks really great.
Smart.
It looks great. Yep. So we're in 318. That's where we are now, gang. So now we're starting to see where racing is starting to finally start to gel even more, both from the community side as well as CIG side. And they opened up with this piece here when we got into the idea of 318. So let's take a look at this. I think they're going to highlight Daymar on this one.
All right. So Namanja, let's just start off with some simple stuff, some setting the stage. Why add 6 new racetracks to the persistent universe in 318?
That's a good question. We should ask that one to Todd, because he took us by surprise too when he asked us to do that. But our goal is always to add more gameplay that's fun and quickly for the players. This was a good onboarding task also for one of our new level designers. It was a good first step toward implementing more racing into the universe. It's definitely a step in the right direction. So, I mean, I'm excited to see what's going to be coming in the future for racing. But for now, 6 racetracks, it was, I think this was a pretty easy win for all the teams that worked on this. And yeah, it was just fun to make, and hopefully it's going to be fun to play.
Cool. So again, for folks who maybe haven't seen yesterday's Insight Star Citizen, you're going to want to check that out to see a pretty detailed look at the racetracks on Yila, Euterpe, and ArcCorp. Today, we're going to take a look at 3 new racetracks, and we're just going to jump right into it here. The first racetrack that we're going to look at and discuss is on Daymar. So, Tom, why don't we go ahead and start the Daymar city clip, and let's just talk it through. Let's take our first look at the new Daymar racetrack. So, Nemanja, what are we looking at here?
So this is going to be a brand new racetrack. So this is not one of the community racetracks that we picked off. This is a new one. It's right next to the garden on Daymar. They have a pretty cool range of mountains and canyons that are like one next to another. And we decided to make a racetrack there for multiple reasons. One, because it's close to a QT point. 2, because we already have these natural canyon formations for players to race in. It reminds us a lot of the Snake Pit racetrack. So in that regards, it's going to be very familiar to the players. There's very similar turns and curves. The atmosphere is the same. So yeah, it's going to be familiar for the racers, but there's also some new parts that are like closer to mountains where we added a little bit of verticality. We added those underpasses under the rocks. Which are very memorable. So we just took Snake Pit and basically brought it to the next level. So this is like the evolution of racing. It looks better, it feels better, it's beautiful. We had a lot of artists work on this. Like Louis Max, he did a great job art-wise, and it really shows like in the minor details. When you get closer to the ground on the human scale, there's a lot more detail. We have better landmarks. It's just a great fun track to race in.
Wow, when you say this is the upgrade to Snake Pit still exists. This isn't...
yeah, we've actually added the missions on Snake Pit too. So the time trials are going to be available on Snake Pit. We had to update the visuals of Snake Pit a little bit also to accommodate for the checkpoints. But the golden path of Snake Pit is still the same. We just had to add some visuals for a few extra checkpoints to make sure that people can't skip above the canyons.
Gotcha. So we added Snake Pit. I don't even remember which patch it was now. 3.17.2? 1?
Yeah.
Okay. So that when we added that, it didn't have formal in-game check marks, did it? Checkpoints.
No, it didn't. So this is brand new. So MFT team worked on those, and they're actually a lot better than I expected. So yeah, kudos to them.
All right, so walk me through the loop here. Players are going to open up their Moby Glass. There's going to be a mission available to them. How does this work?
Yeah, so there's going to be, they're going to have to grind some reputation in order to unlock all the tracks. Obviously, the first tracks are supposed to be a little bit easier. So the player is going to open up the Moby Glass. There's going to be a new racing career. And they're going to be able to pay an entry fee to race. And if we have multiple brackets, I don't want to, not too familiar with how many brackets we have, but we definitely have like bronze, silver, gold, platinum. And then depending on where the player, how fast the player finishes the race, he's going to get a time and some credits depending on where he ranked on the bracket. And there's also going to be like a world record to beat that's going to be based on whoever has the fastest record on that track.
He or she. Don't forget the female racers out there. I had my butt kicked by enough of them internally.
My bad.
We do have an overhead shot, kind of a top-down, to see the size of this racetrack, don't we? Let's take a look at that. So, how big is this? How big are we talking here?
It's very similar to the Snake Pit. So I think this one's about 10 kilometers, more or less. We have other ones that are bigger, that are about 30 kilometers. This one goes in a loop. So we're going to try to have in the future races that are loops, some that are linear. So we're going to play with that.
Okay.
Muted.
So the yellow
Look at Gila.
racetrack was taken inspiration from one of the racetracks built by the community, which was the Grim Prospects racetrack on the Star Citizen Racing Discord, I believe. So there are some on there that are exact. We've taken, direct copies of those tracks, but the yellow one is a little bit different because we've moved it slightly away from Grimhex into an adjacent asteroid field. So our designer in DE, Antoine Fauville, he's taken, a course and he's made it for the players to play. I think it's just really nice to have more space POIs. We have, attractions like Grimhex, but we need more in the surrounding vicinity. So, it might be a case of where you're just flying through the asteroid ring in yellow, trying to get to the planet's surface, and you come across something like this. And we've really built up the structures with refinery modules and cargo modules that we've used before. So it's a nice point of interest, and also it looks cool. We're using lots of the natural formations of the rocks themselves, and also asteroid tethers and stuff like that that are already in the game. Those are our natural checkpoints for the race. I think it's really cool that we have a community that we can take inspiration from and build something of our own. As much as we play test, as much as we spend time in the engine, the players are the ones who are spending hours and hours refining their skills and thinking of new activities to do. So for example, with the Grim Prospects racetrack, it was quite bare. They were just racing around a pre-memorized route, going around all of these asteroids. But now we can really delineate that race, and we can art it up and make it look pretty as well, so people have more memorable moments to talk about.
Look at Utopia.
What I'm currently working on now is the racing track on Utopia. It's called Icebreaker. I believe it was actually from the community originally. And what we did is we took that initial bare-bone structure and we basically created, using the Microtech prefabs and assets, is we actually created like a little research facility base. We've kept the path as close as we could to the initial community racetrack, but what we've done is we've added bits of flavor in from structures to fly past, structures to fly under, and then we've done a bit of a lighting pass to kind of help navigate the player around this space, but without feeling like the intention beforehand was meant to be for racing. It was meant to be this kind of large open front sea kind of facility with like long struts coming out and kind of good. There's good vantage points as well for like when the players come together, that we have little landing pad spots that where you could group up, get together, you could watch your teammates flying around, trying to beat one another kind of competitively. On Utopia, there's not actually tons of POIs, and I think, to be honest, this new space, this new location is going to be one of the key locations on this moon.
And Area 18. So, Rayne, let me come to you on this. With MMOs, one of the things that is always a concern to me is how do you keep things feeling fresh so that players want to come back to those areas, come back and redo them? Because once you've done something, you kind of move on to the next flavor, right, of the month. Do you think that they'll do like an in-game lore similar to how, I know we were talking about racing earlier, like Grand Prix, every year it moves to a different track. Do you think that might be a way to, keep these places fresh? Teams are practicing at that certain track because they know that the next race is going to be there, kind of thing. You know what I mean? It moves, you know what I mean? I don't know how often that would happen, if it's annual, every quarter, month, but what are things that they could do in game to keep, so these tracks don't just get, all of a sudden, nobody's going there anymore?
They could tie it to the Murray Cup, like right off the bat, right? Where the Murray Cup is just like we have Invictus and we have Coremore and we have all the little events in game, the Murray Cup, really believe this will happen. Eventually, at some point, we'll have its own little website, and the Murray Cup will be a real thing, and it'll be, race at, the area, this week or today is the race at Area 18, and go and race there, and world leaderboards and stuff like that to win this, that, or the other. I think that, and these racetracks are a prime example of what I was talking about of triage, right? Some people will say that, like, the fact that GrimHex doesn't have what it originally intended to have yet is like a failed feature. There's really no such thing. Like, there's ideas that you find out that aren't going to work, and then you come up with better ideas. And my mentor always told me that ideas are irrelevant, implementation is what matters. And in 3.18, we've got 7 racetracks, we've got reputations, we've got missions, we've got people you can win money. Like, this is just so much better. And to keep this hot and new and fresh and people want to go out there, tie it into the Murray Cup, make the Murray Cup an actual event that happens once a year, and people will go race there. And I think that that's what they should do. I hope they do that. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, that's very cool. Fastcart, what about you? Any ideas about that? How do we keep these tracks fresh? People keep coming to them, checking them out. Even if it's quarterly, right? I mean, every track doesn't have to be occupied. But my question is, how do we continue that motivation toward racing? So that people who get into this, it's not just a one and done thing.
I don't know if there's so much of anything CIG can do, but mostly it's the community. Like, you have the XPR, they do it, I want to say how much every month. Well, they have one from January and one for February. I forget the rest of the schedule. But I think it's more the community that keeps it fresh rather than CIG, in my opinion. Oh, by the way, I do want to say thank you to Matt Out for the subscription. We forgot to
I didn't see it.
Give him a shout out earlier.
Yeah, thank you,
Matt Out, for 25 months.
Oh yeah, thank you. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you're saying, Fastcart, but I think what Rayne's saying, I'm kind of leaning toward. Don't get me wrong, the community could do stuff, right? But the problem is that how do you get that word out? Like that, what I'm saying? I guess I'm trying to look at more the bigger picture of how racing.
Well, I mean,
you know what I mean?
I mean, CIG does a lot of social media whenever there's a race coming out. They always retweet.
But see, now you're taking it out of. But see, you're taking it out of the game. Chris wants stuff in game. Chris wants stuff in game, right? So no. To your point, the Moby Glass. I'm just saying. I'm leaning more toward what Rayne is saying in the sense of if it's an annual quarter, like let's say even if it's every quarter, there's something going on with racing so that we know that that's built into the lore, whether it's sponsored by the maybe Pyro's got something, right? As crazy as it is over there, they may actually have something where renegades come in to do something, or GrimHex or the GrimHex Grand or something. I don't know, but I'm just trying to figure out ways so that racing is.
I mean, that's an idea too.
So, I mean, you've said, right, Griffin, that you're not really a racer, right?
But I'd like to watch. I'd like to show up. You know what I mean? I'd like to come.
I do think something that you might be missing with racing, though, is like as a racer, when you take on a new track, that drive, how fast can I go?
Push it, right.
Push it. I want to get a minute 30. I want to get a minute 25. I want to get a minute 20. I want to, what's the perfect run, the perfect line? And that's why racing, I think, is so impactful and so powerful, because you're going to have people at these tracks running them over and over and over and over again.
You're always trying to beat, even if it's your own time. Even if it's your own time, you're always trying to do better. And which also makes you want to go back to those tracks, right? Okay. I get it. It makes sense. Okay.
And leaderboards too.
Yeah, leaderboards. Yeah.
How about this idea? Make it the Fast and the Furious Star Citizen style.
No.
Your crew. You have your. Or you make it turn it into a cinema. What have you? That would be great. By the way, I did redeem my own jokes. I can say that.
I'm about to re-redeem that you're not allowed to no more.
Fastcart's making everybody spend their coins and shut him down. So
I have 335,000 coins, so come at me, bro. Come at me.
Okay. All right. Well, here, we're going to hit the last section here that CIG is touched on most recently. This was in 2023. Everything we just saw now is from the end of 2022. But in 2023, they did introduce another aspect of racing, not only in-game, but also they're talking about introducing it into Arena Commander. So let's take a quick look at that.
So I talked about two sort of core gameplay elements. I talked about sort of the flight and fight, and then I talked about FPS. But what I haven't really addressed is racing, which is flight, period.
Racing is a dangerous sport, especially when you've got 6 degrees of freedom, you're flying around a hunk of a ship, you're probably going to die. So to perfect your skills, you need to do it in Arena Commander.
Our race mode in Arena Commander is one of those modules that were kind of built in the early days when I started working here. And a lot of the core infrastructure is roughly the same of what we had originally.
So the New Horizon maps, they've been in since the implementation of racing, and they've been pretty much untouched. There's been some bug fixes, some quality of life improvements.
We hadn't updated those race maps in a long time. A great example was, you know, the current race map that was in place, it looked like it was an atmosphere, but the way it actually flew was as if we were completely zero G.
So what we've done now is we've got the real planet, Green 3 of the Ellis system, which is an Earth-like, beautiful, holiday-like planet, where the races will now take place in atmosphere where they should be.
So they, any of the benefits we get from the racetrack being on a real planet, such as gravity and atmosphere, actually affect the race now.
Fly down. You can fly down to the planet if you want. You're not going to complete the race. So our Arena Commander team is very small. We actually don't have artists, but one place that we have countless number of locations, incredibly beautiful locations, is the PU. It just makes sense. Take those locations from the PU and put them in Arena Commander. Some might think that might be a difficult task. It's actually not. The designers have worked out a perfect workflow along with Mark, making some adjustments to how we spawn object containers, and we're able to take PU locations into Arena Commander pretty fast.
Right now I'm working on is taking racetrack from the PU and transferring them into the Arena Commander. So what I do is basically, with the PU getting racetrack, I would take those racetracks, and with the new race refactor that we have, I can transfer them into the Arena Commander.
Whatever you see in PU is what you see in AC. So whenever we make improvements to things like the actual track that you see in PU, we get the benefits of those improvements. The big benefit is, though, that since they are equal, you get to practice in AC the skills that it takes to become a quick racer and really excel at those tracks without the consequences of like permanent death.
So we can do that for racing, we can do that for FPS combat, we can do that for dogfighting locations like Jericho Station, which will also be coming with this patch.
Now, there was some inspiration that was brought definitely from the community, and you know, myself and Duncan had seen a lot of the messaging that was out there. There was a super active community within racing, and they were basically setting up all the new structure for themselves. And it always seemed to me like a very obvious thing that we could do to support this was to be able to bring PU level type content and tracks into Arena Commander to fulfill that content. And since the time that we had made racing so many years ago, we've since gotten planets, we've since gotten atmospheric flight, we've gotten a bunch of different flight modes, so racing needs to keep up with basically the rest of the game. To make it relevant to everything that's going on within the Persistent Universe, we need to bring Persistent Universe locations, especially great racetracks that the community has come up with, that we have come up with, into Arena Commander itself, so that we can deliver that to you in a more concise 30-minute session that you could do that practice with, but it be completely relevant to the larger existence of the Persistent Universe. So we take those locations into Arena Commander so that those are much more accurate and much more relevant to what you're doing.
You're muted. Muted.
I was saying, Fastcart, I know you thought I was joking earlier when I talked about racing your reclaimer, but as you could see, there was somebody who proceeded to do it. So
I can't wait to see that more in game. I'm looking forward to it. I don't have a reclaimer. I'm looking forward to Benny measurement racing.
Oh my
That's what I'm gonna
God.
do.
Oh my God. Rayne, like I said, you've been around since the beginning, and obviously the thing that stuck out to me when I saw this track we're looking at now was just the difference in improvement. The track looks great especially over the planetary surface, which really makes it look nice. Does that draw you, make your lips water a little bit there when you see this track?
Yeah, I mean, because that's like obviously like a real planet too that they've made. You know, that obviously we're not going to see in the PU for quite some time, but no, that's fantastic. That, you know, the atmospheric flight versus zero-G flight. The fact that it's in Arena Commander. This is again what I was talking about earlier. Work smarter, not harder, right? Like, and if you can make Arena Commander this jump in, jump out. I want to race. I want to dogfight. I want to FPS. I got 30 minutes. Let's go. Let's go. I want to go race real quick. And PU, the long form gameplay, and then once we get Squadron, the single player, like they might as well just admit they're working on 3 separate games at once, which no one else has ever done, right?
Theaters of War too, so that's 4.
Theaters of War, whenever that shows up.
But you know
where
what?
is that, Sean? Where is theaters?
But Rayne, you did hit on something else that Sean mentioned in this, was the fact of not having to worry about permadeath, right? I mean, you can get in, have the fun, have the crash, and get right back in, not have to worry about spawning somewhere. Flying back to the track, all that other stuff, which in and of itself, even for me, that's a draw. That's a draw for me to go at, okay, now I can go to there and, not worry about blowing myself up to Kingdom Come.
It was also mentioned in chat too that like sponsorships and reputation and missions and rewards and so like if you've got like a 10 level racing rep and you go out and you're earning reputation at like level 5, you get a sponsorship and you get more money, and maybe you get like a special skin or something in game for the ship too. There is again your draw that you were talking about, right? You're rewarding the players, and they have so many opportunities right now, and this is so much better. I don't care that the racetrack by Grim Hex with betting and stuff isn't there, because this is just more, much more.
Right. And they can still do something with that later.
Yes, they can. Yes.
It's not, this doesn't nullify it. Tal Seti, I like your idea. It would be kind of cool if there are some races that literally you have to compete to even be able to get into. Some grand race, right? That would be actually cool. I think some races definitely open. If you can get into it and get in, that's fine. If you have to place, right, in order to be in. Maybe it's the top 10 people that are able to be in a specific race. Other people have raced in it before, but this particular one, the top 10 people. I would love to see them do a whole lot of stuff with this. And again, as a spectator, I'd go buy my double dog and my burrito and get my whatever, and I'd come out there and watch. I would. I mean, I really would, because I think this has got a lot more promise to it, and it's not going to be such a niche thing. But anybody who's as long as they pump it up right? Like I said, if I'm sitting there and I see this thing popping up on the monitor, there's a race at 3:00 today, I might decide, instead of go mining, I might decide to go over and watch these people race, and I probably would do that. So I think it's exciting. I really do. Even though I'm not a big racer, I think it's great stuff. FC, any thoughts about this other than the MSR cutting that curve right there? You got any thoughts about it?
We haven't really talked about it, but they talk about other ships that can be used as racing, but aren't really designated as racers. The MSR it would be one of them, because it's one of the fastest ships in the verse.
Well, that and the Herald, right? I mean, if you wanted to get those ships that are supposed to go in a straight line and go fast, but how do they handle curves? One of the ships that they didn't focus on were the snub fighters, right? The P-52s and P-72s.
That's true.
When we first got the Murray Cup, those were like popular ships to fly the races in, because they were very fast, right? And Rayne, I know you've flown a lot of those ships back then when we were at the Murray Cup back in the day, right?
Yeah. And that's another thing too to take into consideration, is like different vehicles and how different vehicles handle is a big draw to, like, well, I can get a minute 50 in a P-52, but what can I get in a 350R? Like take a different vehicle out, race a different vehicle. There's just I said this many moons ago, but I have been waiting for all of this racing for so many years. And it's just to me it's just going to be like mining, right? we're going to see now this massive foundation that they just dumped on us, shadow dropped on us in 3.18, grow with the game for the years to come into just more amazing stuff. And it's fantastic.
I agree. And again, there's other back tech that they could do. Like, we haven't even gotten into the whole tricking your ships out, right? The components and all the things that can go into the stuff being done.
The science and having the Endeavor super collider, make it refitting your mods and stuff like that for racing. I think that'd be a good thing. That would be a thing.
Yeah.
I just want to say something Rayne mentioned earlier about like breaking your axle and having a sound notify you. I think it for people who may not be able to pick up that in game with the audio, having your feedback, like haptic feedback, or like through your joystick or controller, I think that'll be another way to let you know there's something wrong with your ship or your vehicle. And one thing I think they're lacking so far is drag racing. Like maybe we had the long distance race, something more time limited for people to enjoy.
Yeah. One last thing I want to say about this particular track to both of you was they talked about how the difference was in the first Murray Cup track and this one. Where in this one, they said that atmosphere and gravity are now a factor, which is definitely going to change the way you fly.
Drastically.
It's going to drastically change.
And what ship you fly too, because some ships will handle better in space, and other ships will handle better in atmosphere.
Yeah. Kelsar Prime, thank you for that raid. I don't know why our alarms and stuff aren't going off today. Thank you so much for that. Even though we're getting near the end of our show, we hope you had a great stream, Kelsar. Thank you for thinking of us tonight. You guys make sure you check out Kelsar Prime. He's usually on after us. We usually raid him. He's sending the love back our way this week. So thank you for that. Okay. Well, listen, that's our show on Racing Gang. I know you probably thought you were going to watch me and Rayne and Fastcart race around a track today, but nope. That wasn't what the show was about. It was really about where CIG has come from when they first mentioned this back in 2013 till now, and how much racing has grown. We've seen it, like we mentioned earlier, from Daymar Rally, Stanton 7, things like that with the community. CIG has, whether it sparked them or whether it was on their timeline, we don't know, but they've created a great marriage between community and the development company itself. And now we've seen it grow into something that none of us expected in 3.18. So if you have access to 3.18, you guys have probably visited the tracks. If you haven't, we tell you, if you're into racing, visit all 6 of the tracks. If you're not into racing, at least go to the kart racing track, because you'll take some friends with you and you'll enjoy it. I think you can take 8 friends out there to that track and you can run each other off the road all you want to. By the way, just make sure that if you crash, somebody can pick you up, because it's a long walk back to the entrance of that racetrack if you go by yourself. DK told us about that when he went and flipped over by accident way at the other end of the track. So that's what's going on with that. Let's talk about what have I got to talk about? Merchandise?
Q&A.
Well, what did you say,
Q&A. Q&A.
Oh, Q&A, yeah. Oh, yeah, we do. You know what? We had so much stuff flying up with these coins flying everywhere. I didn't look at my whole Q&A thing is filled up with nothing but people trying to cancel out your...
Yeah, the first one is from me for 1,000 space bucks. I'm looking forward to that.
Okay. So Pops in Space asks, how does death of a spaceman affect racing because of the high risk of death? Well, if you do it in game, Pops, you will die. Well, you'll get hurt. And I'm sure it'll be no different than when you die, whether it's in a ship or whatever else. I think that's, again, you probably just saw it now with the Arena Commander. That's the benefit. If you want to practice, even if you want to go race, you can do it there and not have to worry about impact on your character. Now, what you don't get in Arena Commander probably will be the aspects of reputation. And that's what balances it out. That's what balances it out. If you want the reputation, the balance to that is, are you willing to risk yourself to go out there and get it?
No rep, no money.
There you go. Basically,
no money too,
right?
Yeah, that's true.
Right. Arena Commander.
Thank you for the subscription for 17 months. Thank you.
Oh yes, absolutely. So going into the Arena Commander is for practice and for the lulls, right? To go have fun with friends and stuff. But if you're serious, if you're really trying to get the reputation in the game, get them, as Rayne mentioned, the credits, the money, whatever the prizes are, that's going to be something that you have to put yourself at risk for, and that's why you practice before you go out there. Okay, that's a good question.
And we're at the top. Citizen Shenanigans asked, so if the Dragonfly had a red version, would it be faster? And the answer is always yes. Red makes things
always yes.
Always yes.
Always yes to that one. Yeah. So thank you guys for those questions. We really hope you guys enjoyed everything that we covered today. I know it was a lot to watch with video, but thank you for that all. Let's talk about what we got coming up this week. Fastcart, why don't you tell everybody what's happening Thursday?
On Thursday, we have Soul Talk at 9 p.m. Eastern, 2 a.m. UTC. That's where we talk about what's going on in the community that we normally kind of cover stuff from the Weekend Star Citizen and Dev Tracker, but mostly we cover the ISC and STL from what's going on that week. So that is Thursday on 9 p.m. Eastern.
And on Saturday, we have Soul Voices, 3 p.m. That's our one-on-one show where you get to come in and talk with us about things that are on Spectrum and Reddit and the gaming industry. I host that show, and that'll be on Saturdays at 3 p.m. We didn't have it this last Saturday, but we will be back this next Saturday, so hopefully you guys can join us for that 3 p.m. Eastern time.
Before you go to the next Soul Citizen, I just want to say the ban for jokes on Soul Talk, that's a no-go. I'll be doing jokes all evening, so don't waste your points on
Feel free to push all the coins you want on Thursday night. That's all I'm going to say, all right? Feel free. Unload those coins all you want. And then next Sunday, we're going to be doing our show, I Love This Ship. This is going to be where our panel is going to be sharing with you their favorite ship and why this particular ship is something that when they got this ship, it's like, this is it. This is going to be either my daily driver, or it's going to be my ship for combat, or it's going to be my ship when I'm chilling with my friends. That's going to be next week. We're going to be talking about why certain ships are our favorite ships. And of course, we would love to hear which ships are your favorite ships too. So that's going to be next Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern time.
That's going to be a long show.
Well, hopefully it won't be.
That'll be a long discussion.
Hopefully it won't be. Listen, we want to give a special thanks to RayneCloud, who's a good friend of ours, who's always here to support us and hang out and give her voice. Forgive my Super Bowl family in the background screaming because they're watching the game. Rayne, tell everybody where they can find you and your org. Anything else you want to share real quick?
Yeah, everybody can follow me on Twitter at RayneCloud. You can also follow me on Twitch for when I do stream, twitch.tv/LadyRayneCloud. And I love Soul Citizens. I love y'all. I love hanging out. I look forward to maybe my third appearance on the show sometime in the future. So love being here. Thank you so much for having me. It's been wonderful. And yeah.
Well, thank you. We always appreciate you sharing your knowledge, especially your game development wisdom with us. Fastcart, as always.
Griffin, I just want to say I made a redemption just now, so I can say, was that your family or was that a goat scream that's heard? Because I can't really tell. My hearing is so bad.
That was definitely my family. They're up there cheering the game. I guess we're past the halftime and everything, and they're all worked up. So, count it for what it's worth at this point. Okay, let me see. We are going to set up a raid for our good friend Star Jump Ender. I think I saw Grim in here earlier. Grim, if you're still here, hi.
Yeah, Grim was in here earlier.
If you're not here, we're going to say bye. We appreciate you stopping by as always. Another good friend of the Soul Citizen family. But we are going to set up a raid with Star Jump Ender. So thank you guys as always for being here. Thank you. There they go again. Quelsar, thank you again for the raid. Those of you who are here, when you get over to see Star Jump Ender, give him some love. If you like what you see, of course, follow him. As always, don't forget, follow us on our social media. And hopefully we'll see you guys this week during our other shows. Until then, take care of yourselves. Stay safe. Peace, love, and soul. And we will see you guys soon. Take care.
Bye.
Down. No, wait.